Welcome back. You're watching Morning Prime. And also a sad story that we are still following for you is the fact that right now we know there are 8 miners who are trapped in Bondo after the mining shaft collapsed yesterday. Initially there were 10 of them, but 2 were rescued by villagers. No other retrieval has been successful so far, and we want just to cross over there and speak to Isaiah Agwengi, who is our correspondent on the ground, to just give us an update so far on what is happening currently. Isaiah, if you can hear me, good morning. Thank you for joining us on Morning Prime. Will you just prime us on what is happening currently?
Good morning to you.
Yes. So far?
So far, just as you said, so far no retrieval has been made. And there are 2 excavators that were brought at the site yesterday, and they tried to do the operation the whole night. And so far nothing has, no retrieval has been done so far.
Okay. I wanted to ask you as well, because I've been trying to reach out to the area MP, Dr. Gideon Ochanda, also to just give us what are some of the frantic efforts they're putting forth in terms of rescue operations. This should have been also an all-night exercise as it was. His phone is still off. I sent him a text yesterday, no response. I think this is a time where we should showcase some good leadership, especially in light of what is happening. 8 Kenyans are on the ground and their lives is at risk. The leadership should show their strength right now of the leadership.
Hello?
Is that, can you hear, did you hear me?
Pardon?
Yes, I'm asking, have you tried also have you seen the area MP there, Dr. Gideon Ochanda, or other leaders within that particular area right now?
No, the scene was only visited by the area OCPD.
Yes.
And the area sub-county commissioner, deputy sub-county commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The area MP is yet, I haven't reached him, but maybe after reaching him, then I'll know whether he'll be visiting the scene or not.
Okay. Was he?
Yes.
Yeah, he was there yesterday. What was his remarks? What was the promissory notes that we got from him, if you may remember?
The area MP?
Yes.
No, the area MP hasn't appeared at the scene.
Okay, right.
Yes.
Okay, there isn't much information that we can wrinkle out from Isaiah as well this morning. We're still keeping our eyes peeled on that situation currently in Bondo, a very unfortunate incident that happened yesterday where 8 Kenyans who were mining, gold, are trapped underneath right now, and there's still frantic efforts to try and retrieve them. 8 of them, 2 were successfully rescued by the villagers yesterday, and we're hoping that the government will deploy sufficient resources right now to help Kenyans who are trapped under this particular rubble of that particular mine shaft. So this is a story that is still developing, and we'll be focusing on it because 8 lives are at stake, as it were. So we'll keep you updated on that. You're watching Mwongozi, and I was asking, maybe we can actually even talk right now, because this is a good particular point of saying, on showcasing your leadership. Dr. Dominic, you can tell us, in light of what is happening in Bondo right now, we saw what happened in Chile when we had over 30 miners who were trapped in that particular mining shaft, and they had capsules that were sent inside, to make them breathe, have good sufficient oxygen to keep them alive as well. We don't know if we have the magnitude and the capacity, and we don't know the depth of this particular, for me at least, I don't have the information, as it were. Maybe it's poor journalism on my side that I should have actually also tried to get those particular details as well. But when it comes to leadership, because we're talking about leadership right now, this is a time when we should be getting information flowing swiftly, fast and furious. Professor?
Dibal, this is part of what you mentioned about the indignity of poverty. And if we in leadership do not provide the leadership that we need to provide, for example, if we know our people are going down those shafts every single day, have we, no matter how informal it is, have we looked at the safety of these individuals, the safety of the shafts as they're going in? And sometimes, as people cannot be everywhere, leadership cannot be everywhere, but it's good to make sure that we are looking after the people who we serve. And that's where, when Dr. Patricia was talking about servant leadership, where you show empathy and you show that you actually do care about the safety of our people. Mm-hmm. Now, when we go to other countries, like in China, for example, we have this mine collapse all the time because there's extensive mining that's taking place, different parts of the country. But it's the preparedness of the infrastructure within the mining itself that is important. So are we investing as either as local government or as the national government in some of these very unofficial, very informal mining activities to make sure that our people are safe? And because of the poverty that is within our people, they are driven to do things that are not safe. So it is incumbent upon us leaders to make sure that as they try to do what they're trying to do really to make a living, are they doing it in a safe manner that will make it possible for them? Just the same thing that we see when a tanker overturns somewhere, yes. And everybody is running with a jerrycan to get that fuel, people get burnt and all that. What leadership are we providing to make sure that the poverty that drives people to do abnormal things or things that we normally would not do, are we making sure that they're actually safe when they try to do such things? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Tim. We have a good case in point, and I like what Professor Munja is mentioning, right? We put safety of our constituents first. When we're talking about indignities, when we're talking about, eking out a living in a deplorable situation that we have currently, yeah, no one really cares a fig about the safety of the miners, as it were. Did we do enough inspection to make sure that, yes, the occupational hazards that can come with the territory, that is sorted? And now we have 8 lives under that particular rubble. Do we have sufficient resources? Rescue operations on the ground. This should have been all night, right? Because their lives at stake, as it were. And as I've mentioned, this is a time when we see the underbellies, right, of bad leadership coming to the fore.
Indeed. Unfortunately, for many of our so-called leaders, there's not much value that they place on human dignity, on values, on people.
All right, let me just bat in, Tim. I think I need to sort your mic a bit, but Patricia, you heard me. You can actually chime in on that as I try and sort out Tim's mic.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
No problem at all. This is a team effort. I think one of the things that I was reflecting as I saw that, and having followed the Chile mining situation many years ago, there's even a case that was written out of it.
Yes.
It goes back to the question around, who are you serving as a leader? Are you serving only because you have self-interest in the people that you're trying to get to vote you in, or even in a corporate or business undertaking? And I think it goes down to the issue of, do you value human life? Human life.
Yes.
And ask yourself then, as a leader, are you serving the people who tend to be invisible? Which is why you find if a tanker rolls, people run there to try and get fuel. That is not logical. It is driven by the whole idea of need, deep need. And that's why I think it's Dr. Tim who talked about the fact that we can't be talking about lofty values when someone cannot even get the meal to get them through the night. So are you serving those who are invisible? Are you serving the marginalized? Are you serving the minority? Are you serving those who are neither seen nor heard? That's the real mark of a leader. So when a crisis happens, how quickly do we respond? Do we respond and drop everything and say, these are my people. These are my people, so let me run there. 8 people buried there in a gold mine. And you'll find that the leaders in that space may not have showed up for whatever reason. But I think the idea of priorities of who are you serving is a question that needs to be anchored at political leadership level, board leadership level, corporate leadership level. And then follow that question and ask yourself, do my commitments as a leader match my convictions and promises to those people? Because if my commitments, which means how I spend my time, how I spend the money, the budgets, the resources, even how I spend my energy, how I spend, if you are a prayerful leader, what you pray about, it will point out and point you the direction of really checking whether your commitments are a true reflection of what your convictions and what your priorities are. And that's a hard question. So my call to action today is take out a mirror and ask yourself, if you're a leader at any level, right from grassroots all the way to the very top, take a mirror and ask yourself, do my commitments today, this last week, this last year, the commitments I'm even budgeting to have, do they match my convictions to serve the people that have put me in that place, in whichever way, to solve their problem? If we can ask that question and challenge ourselves every day to ask that question and answer it honestly, and then hold yourself accountable to someone who will tell you, okay, this is how we're going to make amends. You need to course correct and recalibrate what you're doing. Then we'll begin to see a rise up of leadership taking care of the basic needs that define the dignity of the human person. There is no reason why someone should be sleeping on the side of the road in this kind of weather. No. There's no reason why a child is being taken into prison with her mother because her mother was actually found selling tomatoes because she doesn't have the money to pay the license. I serve on the Clean Start board and as a chair, and one of the things we're trying to do is find ways to influence policy so that we decriminalize poverty. Once we do that, then we'll begin to see from a policy perspective. But I'm really calling to action the fact that as an individual, anyone who's watching this show, you're a leader of yourself. Ask yourself, are my commitments matching my convictions to serve the people who have asked me to serve them in the spaces that I am leading?
Right. I don't know if Dr. Tim, your mic is okay right now?
Yes, it is.
Fantastic. Yeah, you may continue.
Yeah, thank you. I would just like to buttress a bit of what Dr. Patricia has mentioned. That I think is a question of the value we place on a human life. And I think, this is one of the issues that I think we have not, again, clarified as a nation. If it was, say, one Israeli, let me just use that as an example, who was trapped somewhere in the farthest corner of the world, you would find the whole country mobilizing and making sure that that one life is rescued, because they see that person as valuable. Valuable not only for what they do for the economy, but because of the worth that they put or attach to a human being. I think that's one of the things, for us, these are just numbers. So that's how come people will die in their numbers and so on. Yes, there may be the occasional, condolences and so on, but not really the kind of effort because we haven't attached value to a human being. And so what is one human life worth? And the good book says that if you put all the world's wealth on one side and one soul, the one soul would outweigh it, saying, what does it profit to gain the whole world and lose, your own soul? So I think we need to clarify that so that as leaders, and they realize that their highest responsibility is to the one life, and everyone has worth and dignity, and we want to push them to the next level, and so on. Certainly there are things that, like you mentioned, that should have been done before to assess the safety of this mining process and so on. I'm sure there may be a mining officer in that county who possibly could be sleeping on the job, I'm sorry to say, or other officials who should have looked into the safety and welfare, in terms of occupational health and safety, that should have been looked at before, so that we are able to work, with everyone and give everyone a decent chance in life.
Right, that one life really matters. And when we had also the breaking story of the Chile miners 10 years ago when I was a young journalist, we had the 33 of them trapped, underneath. And the deal began on August the 5th, 2010. They were actually trapped there for 69 good days, right? So we are looking at a specter where this is not a simple matter, maybe the way it is being handled on the ground, because these are 8 lives, and we don't have any sorting idea how we're going to, we even have the resources, how we're going to retrieve them from the ground. And you remember, during that time, they had to dig and push in some capsules so that they can feed those miners. They can drop food there. They can actually drop also oxygen, tanks for them to continue breathing, medicine, yeah, even Bible verses just to keep them, alive with hope that there are people who are caring. Some of them sending out messages through the capsules as well. This was keeping guys alive. And I wonder, area leadership there, will you even fleck out and sleep in your bed with knowing that you have this specter of 9 lives which are at stake? What is happening? Why would your phone be off as a leader at the end of the day? You need to update us on what is really happening. And we're calling upon putting you on the spot as well. That is the area leadership there in Bondo as well. Let's just continue the conversation apace and try. Still, we were talking about making of a good leaders. What are the metrics that we use in choosing a good leader? That is the probing question that we are asking our panelists. I want just to go back to where we had promised you that in his book, Can a Man Live Without God? Ravi Zachariah flips over to page 27 and he writes a very, very emotive story there of Stalin. That Stalin one day took a chicken and he pulled out all the feathers from that chicken, excruciatingly painful for the chicken. And he called upon his soldiers, put the chicken down near his shoes. And he told the soldiers, let me show you how humans should be treated. If you pull all the feathers from a chicken, no matter how painful it is, and you start doling out maize one by one, see what the chicken will do. It will still follow me. Still follow me. Despite the fact that it is writhing in pain, it is bleeding profusely, it will still follow me. Still follow me. And this is what leaders continue to do to Kenyans every time. Once they're in office, they're pulling all the feathers from our body. We cry the corruption. We're bleeding. How can we stanch this particular flaw? We are yelling. Well, we don't want that particular leader. But what they do next time, despite the fact that we're bleeding and we're aching and we're in pain, they're giving us a stipend. They're telling us, oh, 6,000 shillings is good for you. They're telling us, oh, you know what? We're going to boost up your economy. I'm going to give you 200 million shillings to boost up your economy. What have you been doing all these years? At the end of the day, they're doling out those maize. They're doling out those seeds for you, right? We as a country are saddled so much, they're doling out those. Professor, I lack that particular caption, and that is what Stalin was teaching the soldiers, right? Deprive them of the resources so that they may need you once you want to be elected. Professor.
What
Dominic.
Joseph Stalin is trying to tell us, even in today's context, is there's power in poverty. And there is power in poverty because you can manipulate those that are poor. Poverty is dehumanizing. It takes the integrity and the value of individuals to specific measurable things that you can do. You know, as long as you have the masses, and I was trying to look at the Kenyan population. I don't know whether you can see what I was trying to draw here. That's almost like a pyramid. Mm-hmm. And I don't know whether you can be able to see what you have here.
It's a bit whitewashed. So
it's a bit whitewashed.
Well,
okay.
no, but you can just continue. We'll try and
now, what we have here,
yes,
we have 1% of our population that's the super wealthy. And those are the folks that we have entrusted to run this country, mm-hmm. be they in corporate, be they in politics. We have about 9% of our population in the middle class. We have 90% of our people at the very bottom, the poor. Now, as long as these 90% remain the way they are, there will always be power that is exercised over them by those at the top and those in the middle. What we should be doing as a country is trying to get, you see, once you get this 90% and you move them up to the middle class, and that is by policy, that is by economic activities that they get into. Once you get them in the middle class, then they will tell you when they start plucking their feathers, and they say, you know, that hurts, just leave me alone. I am fine the way I am. And they'll look at your piece of, or your corn, you look at your maize, and they'll tell you, my brother, I'm already fine. Now, can you tell me where I can get water? I have the maize now. But as long as we have these poor, a majority of our people who are poor, there will always be power in poverty. And those are the people that we see when these politicians go out and within a very short period of time, the streets are full, everybody has shown up because of the idle nature of poverty that dehumanizes you. You're going there to see where you can get that 300 shillings that you normally would not have on a particular day. Let me give you an example of something that I noticed years ago. If you go to a lot of small towns in this, and I do that in this country, and I started looking at that about almost 10 years ago, you see, you go to the shopping centers, you have young people sitting on one side of the shopping center in the morning, mid-morning. You come in the afternoon, you have them sitting on the other side of the shopping center. And when I came, I used to ask myself, what are these young people doing? Because they're idle and they're moving with the sun. The sun is shining on this side, then they go on this. Now, that individual, and that's the dehumanizing nature of poverty. That individual, if you come and tell that individual, follow me, just like that chicken,
yes,
and do whatever I say that you need to do, either yell, throw rocks, and do whatever you need to do, they will do whatever you tell them to do because they're dehumanized by poverty. We should be talking about the politics of independence from poverty, the politics of getting our people from being at the very bottom and bringing them now to the middle class, give them the dignity that they deserve. And that's why neither of the candidates that's running for office right now, I have not had the economic rationale of how we address poverty in this country. How we look at this, almost 70% of our population that is young and poor. How do we get those people to have a better look in their future, and therefore the dehumanizing nature of poverty doesn't affect them all the time.
Right. Dr. Patricia, let me cross over to you also. And, you know, looking at some of these manifestos, at the end of the day, we have only 3 pillars that we can see: economy, politics, and the social aspect. When you talk about the social aspect, what is conspicuously missing, I should say, it's not easily tripping off my tongue, is the fact that we don't have any mainstreaming of the national values, right? No one really tells us on how, you know, they're going to teach Kenyans to be people of integrity, people who are, you know, they're honest. They want to stanch and lance the boil of corruption. We don't have that in their manifestos at all, right? I think it's high time that Kenyans also should subject them and question them on their manifestos. I don't know, what is your take?
That's a great question. And I like the fact that you talk about the manifestos from that angle, because I have found that these manifestos are usually left at a very high level. And the work that a leader needs to remember they have is a leader is a teacher. And a leader is a teacher by word and by deed. So let's take the word integrity, a loaded word. If we break it down, as Professor said earlier, honesty is one piece around integrity.
Yes.
Another piece has to do with who are you serving, that servant leadership. So each leader who is going for office, I think we should be challenging them to ask them, show us exactly how you intend to educate the people you're going to serve, to show them how integrity, for example, shows up. So that we know when someone is bribing a policeman, that is a lack of integrity. But this morning, as I was coming all the way to KTN, I remember seeing someone open their window and give an umbrella to a policeman. You see, integrity is what you do when nobody is watching. So first, educate. Secondly, measure. What we treasure gets measured. For as long as we don't treasure these values, we will continue to have these same conversations.
Yes.
And these conversations, we can almost draw a graph. Every year before the elections, these conversations begin. Let's stop talking. Let's start acting. And last thing, consequences management. Leadership is both a burden and a blessing. When you're a leader, and when I'm coaching leaders, many times I tell them, someone somewhere is looking at you. You just don't see them. So then the question is, back to the issue of intention, back to the issue of identity. What do I see is my identity as a leader? Do I see that I am a role model? That I am someone who hopefully will be a trailblazer? That someone somewhere is challenging themselves and making decisions based on one word? In fact, if leaders, and we are all leaders in one way or the other, if we could see the gravity of our words, that one word that I say, someone somewhere could be hanging on it to make a decision for their life, then we'll be very, very, very careful about how we speak. So leaders should educate, leaders should measure, leaders should first and foremost live what it is that they are saying they are going to do.
Right. I like the fact that you mentioned education. And what a great fortune that I have, you know, guys from the academia today, professor, all of you are doctors as well. But I want to raise accusatory fingers also to you academicians as well, because largely even the curricula in this country concentrate on the sciences, right? I remember, you know, being drilled, you need to pass maths and science and biology and chemistry, you need to do physics, right? And we get all the engineer. Like you, Professor Dr. Tim Kirui, I know you're a very seasoned, consummate engineer at the end of the day, right? But we were not emphasizing on the humanities, right? The social ethics. Right? Where I remember I took a class in social ethics, but right now if you look at the curricula, these are not places we emphasize people to learn. Right now, we are all talking about, you know, the soft skills, right? Emotional intelligence. These are things we should have been doing right from, you know, the foundation of our education. We blame the system as well, and we blame you academicians as well. Why are you emphasizing on the STEMs here, or because we need engineers here? What about the philosophers? Where are people who are asking critical questions in this country? Right? Dr.
Yeah, thank you. Very good question. And I think it's an issue we need to reflect on as a country. I can only let you know that actually there is good news. There are a number of us at the International Leadership University, which I'm privileged to give leadership to. We actually take this whole area of social sciences very seriously, because we realize that that's the fabric that holds the country together and holds the economy together, indeed holds life together. So we not only are teaching these things, we actually have courses in integrity. We also have mentorship for our students, and we actually require it as it's one of the requirements for graduation. You can pass all your academics, but if you think that your character does not reflect the kind of product we have promised to society, because our mandate, our mantra is developing leaders of integrity. So if you feel that you're not taking out that kind of product, we will not graduate you. Because, and it's within, you know, the students are aware of it, it's in the handbook, so it's something we take seriously. And I think it's important that what you talked about, because I've heard it also even in the national discourse, just saying how these arts are useless and so on, we only need sciences. We need both. I happen to have had, of course, like you say, the natural science background in engineering, and as I began to got into the workspace, I realized that actually what I really was passionate about and wanted to contribute the most was helping develop leaders. So I crossed over to the social sciences. So in a sense, I have been to both worlds. And I agree with you. You know, one of my critiques is that my engineering training taught me very little on how to work with people. But every one of us, by the time you get to a management position, senior manager, you're spending more time in strategy, in working with people, you know, working through teams, and so on. And I think those are some of the deficiencies we have, so that we have people maybe higher up in the echelons of leadership, or so to speak, or positions of leadership, but they're not equipped with what it takes. And that's why I'm grateful that, you know, Dr. Bashir talked about coaching. That's a contribution we can make to help shape these people. But I don't think we need to even wait until they get into those positions. We need to begin much earlier, so that we are teaching these skills to young people. to our teens, to people in high school, at university, and they're learning to coexist with one another. Again, that should be also some of the outcomes. And that's why, even a place like university, it's not just about the technical skills. It's learning to work with people who are different from you, who come from a different background, you value them, and so on. People who are different from you. So I think these are important things that we need to build into the fabric of what we are doing. And again, I'm grateful that there are a number of organizations doing this, but of course the scale is still little. We still need to be touching that bottom of the pyramid, like Professor Mwenja talked about. And it needs to be something that becomes a mass movement. And this is something I would challenge, because unfortunately for now, the state is not doing it. Maybe social actors, NGOs, the church, and other religious groups. These are some of the things we should be doing, teaching and giving that dignity and worth and value, so that by the time even we come to choosing leaders, people then are able to not to sell their, so to speak, their livelihoods for a piece of bread and so on. So much work to be done. I think there are some beginnings, and for me, I see hope.
You see hope. Right. Well, we are really pinched for time, but one critical question that I wanted to ask as well is the fact we saw the president, addressing the nation in the joint parliamentary seating, and at the tail end of that particular presentation, he gave the speakers of both the national and the Senate assemblies some 3 documents, 3 reports, and one of the reports was on national values. This report is being prepared every year, or it is prepared every year by the Directorate of National Values that is domiciled in the office of the President. Sometimes I'm inclined to wonder, where do these reports go to? Because we are raising critical, accusatory fingers to all of us, even we in the media as well, inclusive of me, because we've never broached the subject itself from this particular report. And ask, is it meant just for the leaders in Parliament? Why do they normally present this particular report on national values? And so far, we've had so many State of the Nation addresses from the President and handing out this particular national values report. But we've never broached the subject itself from the report. I don't know, from the academia. How then do you interact, especially the International Leadership University? You're talking about it, and you are in the research department as well, so to speak. Yeah. Do you have any sort of idea what is in this report?
I have been privileged to interact quite a bit, having also participated in the process of identifying the national values for Vision 2030 and the Chapter 6. But I would say that I think the biggest challenge we have is believability. And it's a lot of it is, just academic stuff, so to speak. What we need are role models, walking role models of integrity, of ethics, of the kind of leaders we need. I've had a chance to interact with some of my colleagues who are, or friends who are in that, in the directorate. And some of what they said is a challenge of, whenever we go to try and talk to young people, they ask us, just show us one Kenyan who is a person of integrity. It's that sad, it's that solid, So that's why I'm talking about role models. And that's why for a group like, again, let me talk about the group called LNet, we began to look out for people of integrity and to award them, to applaud them, and so on. Recently at the International Leadership University, we applauded and awarded, Basilio Kimani, this Matatu driver who had showed integrity by, keeping that, laptop and 20,000 shillings for an MKU student. Because people begin to see that, oh, you mean integrity is possible. I was very encouraged that actually that story was run by the Standard. And on that particular Saturday Standard, we were told by the editors that it was the most read article. So Kenyans are looking for hope. Kenyans want to see integrity. They value it. It's only that we don't see enough of it. So role models, I think that's a big part. And wherever we are, I think we need to be able to say, it's possible to live in integrity and yet be successful in this country. Because I think that's the battle that we are losing in terms of that believability that you can be a person of integrity and be successful at the same time.
Right. Prof. Dominic.
Yeah, I think, Dr. Tim, this goes to what Dr. Patricia was saying earlier, the power of intention. If intention of putting up these national values together is just put them there as a construct that we are not going to practice, then becomes a problem. When the fabric of the nation is rotting from inside because of lack of integrity and national values, when you see our leaders behave in manners that would get these children not even think about anything that is for example, the burning of schools. Let me give you an example, the burning of schools. Why are children burning our schools? Now, so far I have not seen, and if the children in the US or in another country burns a school, that's arson. And it is punishable by law. Whether you go to prison, you go to wherever but here in this country, they burn schools and we send them home. And then we come and say, but your parents will come and rebuild the school. Now, I don't know what values we are encouraging to these children when they do that. The next school is not going to be afraid of burning their own school because they're bored or because they want to go home or because they don't want to do exams, because there was no consequence for the first burning and the second and the third and the fourth. The same thing we see in the national politics and national psyche. They know that when you break the law, you are not necessarily going to be answerable to just about anybody, because you have your networks. You can corrupt the judges, you can corrupt the police, you can corrupt whoever else that you need to do. And usually people say in this country, we're going to steal enough so you have enough money to get everybody. But the national values that Daktari is talking about, I think we collect them and we put them on a shelf. We need to figure out how do we infuse those things into our young people.
Right. Thank you. Right, time now to wrap up the conversation. I'll just give it 30 seconds, each of you. Begin with you, Dr. Patricia. Kindly, 30 seconds are yours.
Yes.
Your closing remarks.
Thank you. I would like the call of action, and rather than calling out others, to call you in and challenge you to be a leader without title. Leadership and legacy is what you do when nobody is looking. If we can choose to focus as a country, instead of all these values, let's choose one thematic area and focus on measuring it, making sure the consequences, making sure that people understand what it means every year for the next 4 years. We will see a dramatic change. I want to encourage you, from my manifesto of my book, that leaders should raise the hearts of others, meaning encourage them to raise the human dignity. That leaders should raise their heads, that they should find ways to teach people how to fish, not to give them handouts. That leaders should raise their hand, and as they raise their hand, the other hand should be lifting very many others, because we can't be the kind of leaders who get to the top and throw off the ladder.
Right.
And finally, that leaders should raise everyone they are serving for a higher purpose.
Thank you, Patricia. Dr. Tim Kirui.
Thank you. It's been an honor to share in maybe the inaugural version of Uongozi. I first of all want to thank and congratulate the KTN Standard Group for putting on this show, because this is an area that's not spoken about a lot. And I look forward to not only myself, but the International Leadership University, ELNET, and other players, coming on board, to come and help us to break down leadership. So it is not something that is out there, it is possibly ethereal. It's something that we know we can touch and feel, because leadership is critical.
Thank you.
Many of us are mourning the loss of opportunities. We have an opportunity now, not only through the general election, but through the choices we make in our boardrooms and other places, to put in good leaders, people with good values. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tim Kirui. Right, finally, Professor Dominic Mwenja. Very brief.
Lee Kuan Yew once said, put your best and brightest in politics. And if you don't do that, you are cooked as a country. And those are the very words that he used. We have to look at the power of intention. And when you have a leader who is doing certain things, we have to ask ourselves, what is the intention of this individual? We have to look at people who are honest.
Thank you.
They have integrity, and we know when they go in power, they are not going to throw everything else they have learned out the window.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much. I want to thank you all, our panelists, for participating on their very good, cogent conversation we've had this morning. And we are pinched for time, but also Patricia has good books here. Rise, the 4-way manifesto for life and leadership, and also Pose, musing on life, love, leadership, and legacy. This is available in the nearest bookshop that is in your area. Make sure you grab a copy. Reach repository of knowledge on leadership. Thank you very much for your valued company. You've been watching Uongozi today here on The Morning Prime. It continues apace on the next phase with these all about entertainment with Brian Aseli. Don't go away.